Ann Weltz, the founder and executive director, started the Bay Area Crisis Nursery in July 1981. Sister Ann grew up in the Martinez and taught in the Bay Area schools. As a teacher, she saw firsthand the situation that could develop when a family was in crisis or under a great deal of stress. Determined to find a way to help these families, she spent 2 years at Casa de los Niños, House of the Children, a crisis nursery in Arizona, working as the assistant director and learning how to operate a crisis nursery. It began as a modest house that Sister Ann actually lived in herself, the office being part of a bedroom. It was licensed for children from birth through age 5. Sister Ann has been at the forefront of the legislation for crisis nurseries and has been successful in rallying the support necessary to get some of the requirements changed regarding licensing, staffing requirements for the Bay Area Crisis Nursery. Sister Ann's mission is simple: prevention of child abuse. Since 1981, there have been 17,000 admissions from the Bay Area and beyond. Through her iron will, strength, and tenacity, as well as generosity of the community, grants, and donations, the Bay Area Crisis Nursery continues to operate today. In April 2000, the Don and Mary Mitchell Family Center opened. The building was donated to them by the Mitchell family, who were longtime generous donors and dear friends of Sister.
Somebody got to somebody in the office, because when I'm asked for a biography, I say, just introduce me as the founder and director, and I'll take it from there. Christmas Eve last year, we received a phone call from Crossroads. It's an organization that works with teen pregnancies. They wanted to know if our services were available to a teen parent, or did they have to be an adult? We explained to them that as far as we were concerned, if you gave birth to a child, you were a parent, and our services were completely available. In the background, there was a very worried voice that kept speaking up, and they kept saying, tell them we're 19 years old. Make sure they know we're 19 years old. Make sure they know we want our baby. This young couple, both 19-year-olds, had a 1-month-old baby, and they had been evicted from their home. Not through any of their own problems, but because the owner of the home lost the home, and they had to get out. They were living in a car, and they did not want their baby in a car. They were finding friends, teen friends, that they could stay a night here and there, but it didn't last long. But they were so afraid of losing their child that it took them another week to get the courage to come to our door and admit the child. They took a tour of the place. The place is gorgeous. It was put up in 21 days, and when I said to a Concord inspector, I sure hope this place going up this fast will last, and he said, if there's ever an emergency, we'll send everybody here. It'll never come down. It's beautifully built. We assured this young couple that their baby would be safe with us, that they would have free access to their baby. They could come in and out. The mother said, I need to keep breastfeeding. I don't want to lose the ability to do that, but I also need to keep a job. The young woman had 2 jobs during the holiday season out at the mall. The young man had 1 full-time job out at the mall. And every day, they would come together either early in the morning before they started any work, or later in the evening when they were both off work. The child was breastfed, the family played with the child, changed the diaper, and interacted. They never, never failed to show up. And it wasn't because we required it. It was because they wanted to be with this child. Then they found a place with winter nights. It's an organization that goes from church to church, and families are picked up by a bus at a central location, taken to the church for the night. They receive dinner and a place to sleep. They get dropped off in the morning, and they have social workers that help them, or people that help them with housing, that type of thing. But you must have your child with you to get a bed. They came and they checked their daughter out, and they said, we don't think we're going to like this. So we don't want to check her out permanently. We want to try it for a night. They went to winter nights, and they came back, and these two children, really, having to face the fullness of life, sat down with us and said, you know, she gets such good care here, and it's round the clock. We hesitate to do this, but housing is slow. We're applying. We're trying to get it. We don't know if it'll come on time. We know there's a 30-day limit here by the licensing, so we're going to take her to winter nights, and we're going to continue our jobs and our classes with Crossroads and take her with us. And if we run out of time with the new program, we'll still have days left to bring her back until we get our apartment. Neat kids, great parents, responsible people. We're there for any parent, young or old, who needs a safe place for their child. It may be like this family in crisis. It may be that they're just stressed out. They may be single parents going to school and work every day and bringing their kids to us so that they can also go to classes and get a degree and up their income by getting a better job. And it's a long and hard road when you're going to school and classes and raising kids as a single parent. It may be an automobile accident. Out on Highway 4, a family got into a head-on accident many years ago. They had all different members of their families together in these vans coming back from a family picnic, and a drunk driver hit them head-on. They ended up in 3 emergency rooms around the county, and that night they brought us 5 children. The parents each brought their children in, they admitted them, and while the children were with us, they were able to stay with the 3 people that were sick, get everybody else back to their employment, and get a family daycare plan established to take care of everybody and all the families affected. They came back 3-4 days later, picked up the children, were so grateful that their children could have a safe place while they work things out. We are there for any parent who is in stress or in crisis. The crisis is important because there's very little services for you when you are a parent and you get into a crisis. But the most important part of the program to me is the respite program, because that allows families to get a break when they need it, reduce the stress in their life, and by reducing the stress in their life, they don't abuse, neglect their children. And this keeps children from ever feeling the abuse or neglect that can come in families when they get stressed out. We've been there 37.5 years. We have never taken federal, state, or county monies for the care of the children. Concord wanted so badly to help this that at one point they kept saying, but we have grants, and we said no federal, state, or county monies, because they come with restrictions on programs. So they said, you're putting in computers. Can we buy the computers? That was fine. We took it for that. Because there was no strings attached and no information shared about the program participants. We have had a wonderful community to be in. They have taken care of these children for 37.5 years. It's not easy. The lady you see going around now, Catherine, is our new development director. She has a very simple job. Find $1 million a year to keep her doing. She is the development department head But there's nobody else in the department except volunteers. And we've been doing this now for all these years, and the community has supported us. The Miracle Makeover we talked about, that was done, and it took about $210,000 out of our operating reserves for incidentals that didn't come through or weren't donated or whatever during those 21 days of building. I wrote an article in our newsletter right after that, thanking everybody for all they had done, and said, be a little tight now with the $210,000 out of the operating reserve, but we won't have the maintenance, it's brand new, everything's, you know, a go. By Christmas, this was in September, by Christmas, people had given me back the $210,000, and we were on our way again. That was a gift from the community, $0 out of our funds. People want to help others. Any of you that are parents know what it can be like if you get in a tight spot. If you have a family, an extended family, you get through it. If you have friends that are available, you get through it. If you don't have an extended family, the nursery helps these families. We don't enable them to drop off their kids and forget them. We enable them to drop off their kids, make a better, more stable environment for their children, and bring them back home. For the kids, it becomes like going to camp. It becomes like going on a vacation. And we have a second house. It's called the Dahlstrom House. It's been closed for almost a year due to some problems with requirements of who can staff it. And we're getting those changed now. We're hoping to open it next month again. And that's 6 through 11-year-olds. That one gives respite breaks. It allows the whole family to take a break from the kids. And in that one, the children get to know it as a safe place, as their place, as something of their own to give them peace and quiet and control of their environment. And the first, when we had opened it, one of the first groups that was there, a little boy went up to his mother and said, "You're mean and I don't like you and you're being mean. I want to go to the nursery. I want to go to the Dahlstrom House," because he was now old enough. And his mother called and very proudly said, "I told him, we don't reward him for being that way in the family. And so I told him he can't come." And we talked with her, worked around it, got her to understand that he should come. We also told her he's going to tell us everything that has happened at home. He's going to reveal all your secrets. But when you come back to pick him up, you and I and he will sit down and we'll talk it through. So when you go home, you're back together again. And many of our older children have done this now. This is their home, their time out, a place for them to get hold of themselves and go back to the family to relive. It's just a great service to keep kids safe. I'm asking you to be part of that service. I'm asking you to take what you learned today, and I'm asking you to spread it to the families you help, to the groups you work with. Let people know we're there. Livermore is a half hour away. Many families come throughout the entire Bay Area. And our doors are open to anybody who is a parent of a child, birth through 5 or 6 through 11. We never take a child away from a family unless the child is already abused. And then we work with the parent through the abuse situation and out of it. That might happen once a year or not at all. Sometimes you might have 2 calls in a year in the 37 years we've been open. These parents want their children to be safe. They want to be good parents. And they come to us because they need help doing that. These are the future of our community. These are the children who will be in our community in the future and possibly even our leaders in the community. So I'm asking you to take this information you received today and take it out into the community. Let them know that supporting the nursery will support the future of their community. Spreading the word of the nursery will keep the children in their community safe. Do you have any questions? Yes?
Sounds like you do some counseling. Do you have professional counselors available?
No. We don't duplicate services. We put them in touch with people in their own communities who have services. For example, to give a person that comes from Livermore a Concord therapist doesn't do any good. But to give them an in to somebody out here, we'll get on the phone, we'll go through 211, we'll go through the crisis line, we'll find out what's out there and give them numbers that are active and good. We try to have them use the resources in their own community.
Do you also take like abandoned children temporarily till they get replaced?
No, we don't take any children from social services. There's no connection between social services and our place, because parents are very concerned about anything to do with social services because they think they're out to get their kids. They're not. They're out to help. But try to convince a parent who is uncertain about the future of their life and their family and their children of that, and you won't be able to do it. So we have no contact that way. If they are with social services, once they're out of social services, they can come to us to stay out of it. But we don't take kids away. Yes?
How many kids a day do you average, and have you ever had to turn any away because the house is too full?
I've been grandfathered in all the way along the 37 years. So I have a home for a birth through 5-year-old that can take up to 20 children. It never has, but it could. We try to stop by 12. And when we get to 12 children in the house, we don't take any more respite. We tell them to call back daily till there's a space. When a crisis calls, we always have space because we can't go up to 20. So we never say no to a crisis. We do postpone a respite. And sometimes we're empty because it's not the type of thing you put on your calendar and say, well, I'm going to use that. You usually say, that's great for people in trouble, but I'm fine. And then a year later, when you're in trouble, you're frantically trying to figure out, what was that place that I heard of? You knowing about it can help bridge that gap.
Thank you.
Yes?
Sister Ann, thank you. I'm just curious about the construction. That is remarkable that it was able to be done so quickly. Was this a group of construction managers or contractors who came together?
It was one little man who knocked on my door in January and said, my wife and I came to your country 7 years ago. We want to give back to our community for how well they have treated us as foreigners to your country. And we want to give back to the children. Can we take a tour and see how I, as a carpenter, can make your place look better, be better, whatever? We took him through, and by the time he got through the whole thing, it was a flat roof, had many leaks over the years, had many problems structurally. He got through and he said, you don't want to add anything to this, you want to tear it down and rebuild. And I said, no way am I going to close it. There's nothing else to replace it. I can't close it for a year or more to get it constructed, and I don't have the money to construct. And he said, no, I'll get the money. This is one little carpenter, born 7 years in the country. His wife does music lessons, and he does cabinets and tables and chairs in people's homes. That gentleman and I talked it out, went to the board, decided that until he tore down the place, we were safe, and let him go to try to set it up. And he set it up with major companies, local companies. We had nobody backing us, no great big company like these makeovers, extreme makeovers and stuff. We didn't have any of those big companies. But we had tons of local companies who heard about us, wanted to help, wanted to make sure our kids had this. And they put the best of everything. In fact, so much so that when licensing and the fire department came through for inspections after it was all over and we were making sure the license was in place, they said, you have more systems here than you'll ever need. You've met the requirements and you've added and added and added. Well, we didn't. It was the companies came in and donated to us. This gentleman got it all together September 11th, 2006. We tore down the building. I did think maybe I had lost my mind as I saw the building. It took 14 minutes to bulldoze it. We had no children there. Everybody had been taken care of. I had a list of people that if we had a crisis, they would put us up in a hotel and we would do it from the hotel. We would do the services. Luckily, we did not need that. Respites were postponed for 2 weeks. It turned out to be 3. And the gentleman who started it got angry with all the contractors he brought in because he had no credentials. They had all the credentials. He wanted to tell them what to do. They wouldn't take directions from him. He walked off the site the first week. I thought we were really going to be in bad strait. A major company came in and took the first week. A guy who had built a building for us 5 years earlier, partly donation, partly paid, took over the second week. They all worked at no cost to us, and it turned out great. Absolutely great. You hear about Concord being hard to work with because you can't get inspectors out. They had an inspector around the clock that came whenever we wanted him, day or night. He lived 3 blocks away. We have his home phone number, and we never lost an hour in the progress of the building due to not having an inspection. People are fantastic. We have been in crisis twice financially, meaning we had less than 2.5 months at the beginning of the year, and in a nonprofit you have to have 6 to 9 months in the bank if you don't have an income to get through to the giving season when most of your money comes in. 80% of your money comes in the last quarter. So you have to have some backup money in the beginning. And we've twice been in crisis. But when I put that out, we get a response because we don't call wolf. We don't say we're in crisis unless we are. And it's a huge job to find $1 million. Most people don't tell you what their age is. I started telling people. Last year, I turned 78. And I made a commitment to myself that by the time I hit 80, in March I'll be 79, next year I'll be 80. I plan to have a safety net in place. A safety net for the nursery's stability. And that safety net needs to be $1 million. Not the what million Catherine's getting to operate it, but $1 million that will be a safety net. I get wonderful board members. Those board members are usually from the business world. They're used to working with their own backups and their own safety nets in place, their own accounts. We don't. We work with a zero balance. If we get to that zero balance, there's nothing to do but close or cut, sell buildings or whatever. We own all our buildings. Now, I want a safety net there so that when they get within range of that, they consider themselves in crisis and they do something about it like they've done at the 2 crises we've had. So I am right now meeting with people that are going to try to help me put this together. We need to be sure that this goes on. Our community is heavily invested to see that children have a place of safety in the Bay Area. We need to keep it that way. And we will. I have no doubt. I don't know where it'll come from, but we will. I prayed that this year, this past year, we would get out of the crisis cycle and get going in the right direction. And a lady died that 5 years ago had heard me speak. She gave us 5 donations. A $5 was the lowest, a $50 was the highest. In her will, she left us $100,000. We had not heard from her for 7 years. This place goes on the unusual. I also shared what I just shared with you about the safety net with a foundation, a family foundation. They were going out of business, and the guy that I had been dealing with for the past 7 years for their grants said to me, "Sister, we won't be coming anymore. Our funds are getting out and we're closing down this year." And so I shared with him about this future, and I said, if you know in the cycle you've been in, if you know any ways that I could be helped to getting this, let me know. They didn't give us the 10,000 that they had promised, that they came to work with us on. They gave us 100,000 in order to help us preserve this for our community. So this is a wonderful community when it comes to families and kids. They have supported us. It's just that we don't get the security ahead of time. I, as a sister of St. Joseph, have no problem living by faith. But sometimes I have to do a lot of talking to the board, because it's hard sometimes to see nothing in the till and nothing coming in and the funds getting down closer to zero. And I always say, you know, just keep doing what we're supposed to be doing, keep reaching out, it'll come. And it does. But sometimes for the business people, that's hard. Many times I've been told, if you were in the business world, boy, you'd be making millions. And I said, no. And they said, yeah, you're a great leader, a great business person. And I said, no. I have faith, and I have somebody up there that takes care of it, and I leave it there. That's very hard for the business world people to totally be able to be comfortable with. So I'm giving them a little help. Any other questions? Please take them.
You were mindful in the winning raffle ticket this morning?
Please take the information, spread it far and wide.
Last three numbers, 957.